The much talked about exhibition, Caravaggio 2025, is on view at the Palazzo Barberini, which is home to the National Gallery of Ancient Art in Rome. It's a sold-out show which was supposed to wrap up at the beginning of July, but due to popular demand, it was extended through July 20th. This is the most comprehensive survey of Caravaggio's work since 1985. 40 years ago, the Met in New York staged the exhibition The Age of Caravaggio, which featured 40 works. And another, even early event was in Milan in 1951, organized by art historian Roberto Longhi, who is credited with bringing Caravaggio out of centuries of obscurity. Nevertheless, this is a great exhibition, though smaller, but it includes some rare and newly discovered works. It's introduced by Thomas Clemens Salomon, the museum's director.
Caravaggio 2025 is a landmark exhibition featuring 24 masterpieces by Caravaggio, arriving from all over the world.
The exhibition is organized chronologically, and we begin with The Boy Peeling a Fruit. And we start from these early works in the Roman workshops, which are very well represented here by the boy peeling a fruit, one of the works greatly admired by Caravaggio's contemporaries, evidently because there are many versions of it. We have the exemplary one from the English Royal Collection, next to the sick Bacchus from the Borghese Gallery, the painting that reached the collections of Scipione Borghese in 1607. The sword-carrying bad boy of Baroque art, Michelangelo Merisi, that's his real name, arrived in the Eternal City, which was sort of New York City back then. They called it Caput Mundi, the capital of the world, in 1595. Previously, it was believed to be 1592. But either way, he was a nobody, a poor, orphan, hungry, and angry young man in his early 20s. At the beginning, he worked at the workshop of Cavalier d'Arpino, an established Mannerist artist favored by the clergy. He tasked Caravaggio with painting fruit and flowers, and that is what you see in his early works. He stopped working at the studio after a few months when he got sick. While convalescing, he painted sick Bacchus. Because he was poor, he used himself as a model. And if you look at them side by side, you see the resemblance. Caravaggio moved a lot in his first years in Rome. He gambled, got into brawls, was imprisoned several times for assaults. The streets were mean and seedy, populated with all sorts of unsavory characters, prostitutes, drunkards, thieves, the characters he portrayed in his paintings. For example, this one, The Fortune Teller, which comes from the Capitolina Gallery in Rome, depicts a young gypsy girl reading a young man's palm. And if you look closer, she's trying to remove a ring from his finger. Another one is the Cardsharps from Texas. By the way, there are 5 paintings from the United States. Here you see a young man, your classic pigeon, being duped by a pair of cheaters. The card sharp on the right holds extra cards behind his back, while his older accomplice lurks over the young victim's shoulder. Look at his eye and signals hidden gestures. These works are from the so-called humorous period. The next painting, Concert or the Musicians, is on loan from the Met. It marks his first big break. He met the man who would become one of his main benefactors, Cardinal Francesco Maria del Monte, who made this commission. Del Monte was a music and arts lover, among other things, but you're not going to go into there. Here you see 4 very young men. The central figure with the lute is a likely Spanish castrato Pedro Montoya, who lived in Del Monte's household. And again, Caravaggio paints himself. He is the second figure on the right. The third is a winged angel, but fruit. And finally, a boy reading a music sheet in the foreground. It's so detailed, it's determined to be a madrigal. Both the Cardsharps and the Concert returned to the Barberini Palace after 400 years. And the path unfolds through the transition from a very youthful style characterized by painting in light tones, chiaro. The so-called comic painting, marked by a strongly positive imprint, even though often underpinned by allegorical or moral themes. To the so-called tragic painting, where the drama of human destiny and sacred drama becomes central.
E il dramma sacro diventa primario.
And that's what you see here in the monumental work, The Conversion of Saul. One of the major Caravaggio's contributions to Baroque art is chiaroscuro, and in particular tenebrism, the extreme contrast of light and shadow, which creates dramatic effect and accentuates the tension of the scene. It was commissioned for the Chirazi Chapel, Cappella Chirazi, the Basilica Santa Maria del Popolo in Rome. When the chapel was finally finished, it didn't fit the altar, so Caravaggio made another version, which hangs now in the Chirazi Chapel, and you can see it almost for free, like €2 donation. In this version, Saul, who became St. Paul, is presented as a young man, in contrast to the version in the exhibition, which comes from the private Adescalchi Balbi collection in Rome. St. Francis of Assisi in Ecstasy from Hartford, Connecticut is his first religious painting commissioned by Cardinal Francesco Maria del Monte, who owns 6 paintings by Caravaggio, according to the catalog made upon his death in 1627. Here you see St. Francis, after receiving stigmata, is held by an angel. Stigmata are the 5 wounds, like the ones Jesus got on the cross. The last work in this room is Narcissus from the Barberini collection. The painting is of questionable attribution. Experts still debate whether it's Caravaggio. It's based on the myth of a young man who falls in love with his own reflection and drowns. The second room is dedicated to portraits. Among them, perhaps the most famous in the Barberini collection is Judith beheading Holofernes. It's a biblical story of a young Jewish woman who kills a foreign conqueror to save her people. It's a cruel but necessary act. It's quite gruesome, isn't it? Right next to it is Magda and Mary Magdalene, or Conversion of Mary Magdalene, from Detroit, Michigan. Magda is trying to convince Mary Magdalene to drop her old ways, redeem herself, and follow Jesus. It's rich in symbolism: the mirror, vanity; the white flower, purity. The third painting in this group is Saint Catherine of Alexandria, and it comes from Madrid. It's a story of a young Christian virgin so smart and eloquent that she defeats pagan philosophers in debate and converts many to Christianity. The Roman emperor condemns her to death by spiked wheel, which shatters at her touch. She eventually is beheaded by sword. Here she sits by the broken wheel, holding the bloodied sword. It was commissioned by Cardinal Del Monte, but later acquired by Antonio Barberini for this palace. What unites all 3 portraits is the same sitter, a well-known Sienese courtesan, Filide Melandroni. Next, there are 2 portraits of the same man. The portrait of Maffeo Barberini, which we recently exhibited here in these months at the National Galleries of Ancient Art. Cardinal Francesco Maria del Monte introduced Caravaggio to his friend, Protonotary Apostolic Maffeo Barberini, who later became Pope Urban VIII, the uncle of Antonio Barberini, the Palazzo's resident. The portrait Salomon refers to is a highlight of this exhibition. First revealed publicly last November here, it's on loan from a private collection. The museum is currently negotiating its acquisition. It's displayed alongside an earlier work attributed to Caravaggio, a very different take on Maffeo Barberini, a portrait with a vase of flowers in the corner. The next room is all about biblical paintings. Besides chiaroscuro, Caravaggio introduced realism into the portrayal of saints, which was revolutionary. They look like real people with wrinkles, disheveled hair, dirt on the fingernails. A very rare piece, The Taking of Christ, from the National Gallery of Ireland in Dublin, shows the dramatic moment when Judas just kissed Jesus to identify him to the Roman soldiers who came to arrest him. The figures are very close together, almost claustrophobic, and the person standing in the back holding a lantern is Caravaggio himself. Fun fact, it used to hang in a Jesuit cafeteria of unknown provenance until an inquiry from the National Gallery. Once cleaned, it was identified as Caravaggio. By the way, Francesca Capellezzi, one of the exhibition curators, worked on that project while still a student. Over here we have two very different versions of St. John the Baptist. This one is from the sister gallery, Corsini part of the museum. It's a different part of Rome. I don't know why, but he painted many versions of St. John. St. John is depicted here as a young man. No halo, no lamb. The only thing to identify him is a red cross. Actually, X-ray revealed the lamb was there, but removed later. And this one, St. John the Baptist in Wilderness, from the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art in Kansas City, Missouri, is a full-body picture, which is unusual as he favored half-length portraits. I think it's more beautiful. During this time, he was at the peak of his career and a sought-after artist. Then something happened that turned his world upside down. In May of 1606, he killed the man Ranuccio Tomassoni in a sword fight or duel. No one knows exactly. They say over a tennis match. Can you believe it? They played tennis back then? But anyway, for this crime, he was outlawed and sentenced to death in absentia. Basically, anyone who would find him could kill him. He fled Rome first. He went to Naples under the protection of the very powerful Colonna family, particularly Costanza Colonna, a childhood friend. The Flagellation of Christ was painted while Caravaggio was on the run. He was still in demand, it just he couldn't be in Rome. This work was commissioned for a chapel in Naples, like the Conversion of Saul in the first room. It's in the Capo di Monte Museum in Naples now. Here you can see Caravaggio's mastery of chiaroscuro. Christ is lit from above and his tormentors are in the shadow. The setting is tight. You can barely tell whose limbs belong to whom. It's another characteristic of many of Caravaggio's works. The soldier on the right kicks Christ in the calf while tying him to the column. Another one on the left holds him and pulls his hair, and the third one is making a scourge. The use of light and shadow highlights the intensity of the scene. It's often compared to a theatrical set. The work on the left is another highlight of the exhibition. Ecce Homo, Latin phrase, behold the man, is ascribed to Pontius Pilate the moment he presents Christ to the crowd. The figures are pressed forward, placing the viewer almost right in the scene. This painting was rediscovered in April 2021. During the pandemic, it was put up for auction in Madrid. It was attributed to the school of Spanish painter José de Ribera. The opening bid was 1,500 euros or $1,800. Can you believe it? When pictures started to circulate online, scholars suspected it might be lost Caravaggio, so the Spanish government immediately banned the export of this painting. It was acquired by a Spanish collector, and it's an indefinite loan to the Prado Museum. While awaiting papal pardon, Caravaggio painted David with the head of Goliath as a gift to Cardinal Scipione Borghese in the hopes he'd arrange this favor with his uncle, Pope Paul V. David here looks sad, almost mournful. while Goliath's contorted face, Caravaggio's self-portrait, as if he was offering himself for mercy. There is an inscription on the sword, HASOS, Humilitas occidit superbium, humility kills pride. The picture is still in the Borghese Gallery in Rome. Supper at Emmaus, from the Brera collection in Milan. It's the second version of resurrected Jesus breaking bread with his followers who are in disbelief. The early version in London is more detailed and lighter. It has more chiaro. While this later work is stripped to the bare minimum, the table is sparse, just 2 pieces of bread and a jug of wine. It's darker with no visible background. The overall tone is much more subdued. The last painting here is Saint Francis in meditation. He's alone, holding a skull in deep reflection on death and redemption from sin. It's very different from the earlier Saint Francis in the first room. The tone here is darker, somber, even gloomy. We have one more room to go. And then we go to discovering the last room, the tragic epilogue of his biographical story. After Naples, Caravaggio moved to Sicily and then to Malta. He even became a knight of the Maltese order, the Order of St. John Hospitaliers. But he couldn't help himself. He committed a crime, was imprisoned, escaped, and was back in Naples. It's probably during this period he painted the Knight of Malta. The brush strokes are broad, the facial features are softened and partially obscured by deep shadow. In 1610, he finally got word that his pardon was granted. Ready to go back to Rome, Caravaggio painted another St. John the Baptist as his thanks to Cardinal Borghese. It's a full-length portrait of St. John with a lamb and reed cross. Here are all 3 versions from this exhibition. And this is Caravaggio's last painting, the Martyrdom of Saint Ursula, now in the Intesa Sanpaolo collection in Naples. Sadly, the work is not in the best shape. It's undergone multiple restorations, the latest just this year. The damage goes way back. When Caravaggio finished it, the buyer's agent put it in the sun to speed up the drying, ruining the varnish. It was commissioned by a wealthy nobleman from Genoa, Marcantonio Doria, as a gift for his stepdaughter who just joined the Order of Saint Ursula. It's based on a story of a young princess who refuses marriage proposal of King of Huns, and he shoots her with an arrow. Caravaggio captures the moment immediately after the arrow pierces Ursula's breast. She looks down at it as if surprised, and the guy with his mouth agape in the back is Caravaggio himself. It's his final self-portrait. He died at 38 under unknown circumstances, never reaching Rome. That concludes our journey through Caravaggio's life and work. Keep getting inspired. I'm Jane Greaves. Ciao.